Hi friends, this is Angelica. Thanks for joining me today. I have a really fun video to share with you. I am going to be combining my love for paper crafts and card making with my love for making Christmas ornaments. So I'm going to show you how to use your die cuts to decorate your handmade ornaments. And if you're not into die cutting, that is totally fine. I'm also going to share how to distress ornaments. So there is a little bit of everything for everybody in this video. I'm going to be working with clear glass ornaments. I have a 4-piece set here from Hobby Lobby. This is the 4-inch size, and these are they're kind of flat. They are not a bauble, so they're flatter circle ornaments. And the first thing I need to do is get them on dowels because I'm going to need to have a free hand. So I have a selection of dowels to use. Now with the glass ornaments, each ornament neck where you put the dowel in are going to be different sizes because glass ornaments are not the same as plastic ornaments. So I'm just going to go through the bucket of dowels that I do have and find one that will fit each ornament. Then I'm going to use painter's tape to make sure it stays on the dowel. And I use some rubbing alcohol to clean the ornaments. And now I'm going to prime the ornaments. I'm using Pentart Bonding Primer. This is my go-to primer for glass. I don't have any other primers to recommend because this is the only primer that I have used and I love it, so I've never looked for anything else. Unfortunately, I don't think you can go to a craft store in America to find this primer. It is an Eastern European company, so I buy my bottles off of Etsy. And I've bought a bottle. I have a second bottle coming because I'm at the bottom of this one, but this jar has lasted me for 2 years, so a little goes a long way. I'm using a little round foam brush to add the primer to the glass ornaments. I'm also going to be using this brush to add the paint to the ornament when that time comes. So these are really inexpensive little brushes and they're really easy to clean. I primed all 4 ornaments and set them aside to dry. It's going to take about an hour and a half for them to dry. So while I'm waiting, I am going to start die cutting. And I'm going to use the Diaries Abundant Joy die. Any word die would work here, or letter die set if you want to make your own words, if you want to personalize, put somebody's name on an ornament, that would work too. As long as the die cut is going to sit flat on the ornament. And that's a big reason why I picked this shaped ornament, because it is a bit flat. So it's going to be easy to get these letters to lie flat on the ornament. The cardstock that I used is Neenah's Solar White 110-pound cardstock. I love the thickness of this cardstock. It's just going to give the right dimensions. So when it comes time to distressing the ornament, those letters are really going to pop because they have just a little bit of height to them. Once I get these die cuts popped out of the die, I will keep die cutting until I have 8 joys die cut. I need 2 for each ornament. Now the primer is dry and it's time to get the die cuts on the ornament. So I'm going to be using Liquitex Matte Medium to do this. This is my go-to adhesive when I want to add anything to my ornaments, especially paper or decoupage paper or even paper clay. I always use this adhesive. One thing that this adhesive needs to do is soak into the paper. So I brushed a little bit of the adhesive onto the ornament just so it could kind of start drying. I want it to be sticky. And I'm also putting it on the back of the letters too, so it can start soaking into the paper. The more time it has to soak in, the easier the paper is going to be when you're working with it. So I did that in fast speed, but now I'm going to slow it down. I have it at regular speed now because I want you to see how much patience and how slowly I do this part, because this is a really important part to make sure that the letters are centered and that they're straight and they're not too high or too low. So it did take me about 5 minutes to do each side of the ornaments, putting on 3 letters. So I'm starting with the O first. This is the most important letter because it is the middle letter. So, and this particular O is super swirly. So it has a lot of bendable parts. So I'm just trying to keep everything together. I'm also using my reverse tweezers to help be my third hand here while I'm doing this. And I'm getting the letters into place, and I'm trying not to touch the letters quite yet because my fingers are still dry. When it comes time to really start using my fingers, I will put adhesive on my fingers. So that is one thing that this project is going to do. It's really going to dirty your hands. There's no way around that. So be ready to dirty your hands. I didn't even worry about a manicure before this project because they're just going to get dirtier the deeper we get into this ornament. So I have the letters pretty much in place now, and it's time to start adding adhesive to the top of the letters. So first I'm starting with my brush, and I'm doing my best to kind of push the paper into the glass. And once I'm pretty sure I just can't go any further with the brush, I will now start using my fingers. And this is where you need to make sure you have adhesive on your fingers, because if you just touch the paper with your dry finger and pull that finger up, well, you're going to pull some of the paper up with it too, because it is sticky from the adhesive. So a fully wet finger does not hurt the paper in any sort of way. Unfortunately, sometimes the letters are going to move, and that's fine. Just kind of get it back into place and just be patient. The paper will adhere with time. Like I said, it took about 5 minutes for each side, for me to do each side. So, I just put on a podcast and I was listening to something in the background while I was doing this part. I'm sure I'm going to be asked if this could be done with Mod Podge. Though I haven't done it with Mod Podge, I think it could. And it does dry a lot quicker than the Liquitex. It's a bit stickier, so the letters will probably adhere quicker to the ornament. Liquitex is just my go-to, so I didn't even think about pulling out the Mod Podge. Plus, it's also a sealer, so I don't really like painting on top of Mod Podge. So just keep that in mind if you do want to try that instead of the Liquitex. And like I just said, the Liquitex does take longer to dry, so I had to let the ornament sit for a couple hours for the Liquitex to fully dry before moving on to painting. I've already painted one ornament with sage paint. I'm using Home Decor chalk paint by Folk Art. So this gray paint that I'm going to be using now is Parisian gray, and this is the ornament that we are going to be sticking with for the rest of this video until the end, and I'll show final pictures of all the ornaments that I made. This bottle is a couple years old and the paint is pretty dried out. So this is probably the last time I'm going to be using this bottle of paint, but I'm glad it is thick because dabbing it onto the ornament like this is going to give the ornament a lot of texture. And I want to give these ornaments as much texture as I can. So when it comes to distressing them, it makes it a lot easier. And since I want these ornaments to have a lot of texture to them, I'm going to be adding 3 layers of paint to them. So this first layer, I'm going to cover most of the ornament with the gray paint, but I'm not trying to cover every single part and get rid of the primer or the white on the cardstock. I'm just getting just that first layer of paint on. And once I'm happy with the way it looks, I'm going to set it aside, let the paint dry, and then move on to the second layer. So when you're doing 4 ornaments, it does make the time go a lot faster than, painting one ornament, letting it dry for 2 hours, painting it again. When you do more than just one, it's like an assembly line. So it takes the same amount of time to do 4 as it does to do 1. For the second layer of paint, I'm going to use white, and I'm going to bring back some of the white from the primer. When I started doing the gray, I actually liked how the white looked with the gray when it was just kind of back and forth. So I wanted to bring some of that white back, and so I'm just pouncing that paint all over. I'm not There is no reasoning to what I'm doing here. I'm just making sure I am leaving some empty spaces because just that little bit of paint next to no paint, again, is going to add texture to the ornament. I'm going to speed this process up a little bit. I'm doing the front and the back. Now, these are glass ornaments and they are very delicate glass. So I am using pressure to make sure that the sponge is applying a good amount of paint onto the glass ornament, but I'm also making sure I'm not pushing too hard because the glass will break. I know this because it happened to me, and oh, it broke my heart because I'd put a lot of work into it. So just pay attention to your pressure, and especially if you're working with glass ornaments. And I forgot to mention when I started painting, this is where if you're not going to be doing die cutting or you don't want to apply anything to your ornaments, this is where you would jump in and start painting. This is and I've made several ornaments just painting too without anything on them so I can get this really distressed look. So you want to make sure that you add a couple layers of paint in different ways. Like I did the gray, I went back with the white, and now I'm doing a third layer of gray. And this paint is thick, but I'm going to thicken it up just a little bit more with some baking soda and do that last layer with the baking soda. And there's several ways that you could apply this top layer of paint to your ornaments. I've used saran wrap, I've used a painter's brush, the sponges, but the baking soda is just going to give the ornament a nice sandy, scratchy texture. And we're going to distress it with wax, and that wax is really going to stick into the grooves that the baking soda will give. Once this paint is dry, I'm going to move on to the wax, and I'm going to be using Debi's Design Diary DIY wax. I have a dark wax and a clear wax. I also have stencil brushes. These are super coarse stencil brushes that I like to use and really get the wax deep into the grooves of these ornaments. You're also going to want some baby wipes off to the side and some folded up paper towels. So I have my area set up because my hands are going to get dirty and I don't want to have to open drawers or anything. I just want all of my stuff ready to go. I'm using the smaller stencil brush to apply the dark wax first, and this stencil brush is only for my dark wax. And I have used different waxes in other videos. In fact, I'll leave a link here on screen to a video I did using Home Decor's wax, the antique wax. It's like a brown wax. It's a liquid, so it has almost like a honey consistency, and it immediately stains. It's lovely. It has a fabulous price point. You can get a little bottle of it at Hobby Lobby for under $2. But I bought this wax either last year or the year before, and I immediately fell in love with it, and I don't mind spending the extra money for this wax because it is fabulous. I highly recommend it if it can fit into your budget. Once I applied my layer of wax, I'm going to use the baby wipe to wipe off a lot of the wax just to see where I'm at. I did set this aside to dry a little bit, and I waxed the other ornaments and then brought this back into screen. But while I'm wiping it off, I want to talk a little bit more about the Debi's wax, the DIY wax. To buy a DIY product, you do have to find a distributor. I happen to have a local distributor at an antique mall here, so I can just drive down the street to get my DIY products. You will have to look online on their website to see if you have a local distributor. If not, there are online stores, home decor stores. There's stores on Etsy that sells this line. So I really do recommend looking into it, maybe watching other videos where people use this wax, and you're going to just see how lovely it is to work with, especially if you like distressing your projects like I do. Okay, so once I got this put aside and dried a little bit, I did wash my hands. I'm going to go in now with clear wax, and this is going to just kind of clean up the ornament. It does look a bit messy right now because the wax is pretty uneven. So I'm rubbing the clear wax over the ornament, and it's just going to pick up a lot of the brown wax. Now, what I wish I had done in this process is used my thumb to really push the wax around, because I found that that is what, when I'm doing this step, that's what really helped keep the dark wax on the ornament, but to pick up the blotchy areas of the dark wax. But I didn't know that at the time when I was doing this. And I actually didn't really like how much wax I ended up taking off of the ornament. So I'm going to do the back side. I'm going to set it aside, let it dry for a couple minutes while I finish the rest of the ornaments. And I decided to just go back and re-wax it again. And you can. That's what's so great about this wax, is that you can build it. And the wax consistency is almost like room temperature butter, so it's really easy to work with, and it stays wet for a while. So when I did the second layer of the dark wax, and I started moving it around with my fingers just to really push it into the little textured part of the ornament and like get it tucked right up against the letters and the lines in the letters. I just really wanted to push that wax as deep as I could into the ornament. I realized that using my fingers was the best thing to do. The stencil brushes are awesome, and they actually smoothed out the ornaments and took kind of the sandy texture away and just left it a really nice smooth surface. But my fingers is what really made the wax jump. Well, maybe jump's not the right word, but it just made the wax go into place, whereas the stencil brush wasn't able to do that. So this is where the hands are going to get really dirty if you choose to do this, but it is so satisfying, I promise. I'm just rubbing that with a really good pressure into the ornament. I'm going in different directions and just getting the wax in all the little cavities on this ornament, and then I'm going to set it aside to completely dry. I think I went upstairs and made dinner, or I just gave it a lot of time to dry before going straight into the clear wax, because that was another thing I did wrong, is I didn't let the wax fully dry, and so when I put the clear wax on it, it was just picking up the most of the wax, which is why I wanted to do the second layer, because I just pulled too much wax off of the ornament. So I'm pretty much finished rubbing my hands all over the ornament, so I'm going to set it aside to dry. I'm going to show you my hands real quick just to show you how dirty they got. So now I have a dry paper towel, and I'm going to brush it just to show you that it is dry. And I am not going to use the dark wax anymore. I'm going to go right into the clear wax. And I want to make sure that my brush is also clean. So I did rub that on the dry paper towel too, just to make sure there was no dark wax residue on it. I have a craft mat here, and I'm going to just put the excess clear wax on that craft mat, because I don't want to put my brush that's, being swirled on top of dark wax back into that jar. So I did an amount of wax on the craft sheet. And now I am using the stencil brush, brushing that over the dark wax, and then I'm also going to use my fingers and really smooth that out too. Once I am happy with how it looks and I think it's ready to be wiped, I'm going to grab that paper towel and wipe it off, and just look at how much still comes off. Even though it's dry, that's how much the clear wax activated the dark wax. But I am just loving the way the dark wax looks now. It's not too heavy. It's in all the right places. And I don't know if my camera is picking up well, and I keep going off screen here. I'm sorry. But this is just such a satisfying part. This is my favorite part of doing these kind of ornaments, the distressing part. I could do this all day, every day. I love rolling my sleeves up and getting my hands dirty just to make projects like this. And luckily the wax doesn't smell because I did work with the wax a lot in this process, so it does not have a terrible odor to it, if you were wondering. The bonding primer doesn't smell good, but the wax does not have a lingering smell. So don't know if anybody was interested in that. I have a pretty sensitive nose, so usually when I'm doing the bonding primer, I do leave the room, or I put the ornaments in another room while they dry. I'm going to speed the video up now. I am just going to use the last of the wax that's on my craft sheet and just kind of play around. If I see any areas that have a little bit too much dark wax on it, I'm going to just pick it up with the stencil brush and the clear wax and just kind of play around. I tend to do this when I'm getting towards the end of my projects. I don't know when to stop and just walk away. So I'm stopping now. I did put it aside to dry overnight. I had all of them dry overnight, and now I'm going to put a top coat on them. This is the DIY's Big Top After Show Top Coat. Just a small layer is fine. I'm using an inexpensive paintbrush to apply the varnish and just making sure none of the varnish builds up around the letters. And this is a pretty quick step, and it dries pretty quickly. It dries to a beautiful satin sheen, so it's not too shiny, and it's just going to look really pretty on a tree next to the Christmas lights. I cannot wait to get these hung up. Here's a quick look at the other three that I did. I'm just going to get them off of the dowels. You definitely don't want to twist them like I was trying to do at first. I forgot I was working with glass and not plastic, so I took the painter's tape out, took the dowel out, and then put a topper on. Now the toppers, I did spray paint them. I have hammered spray paint, so I sprayed them with gold and with a dark bronze, and I liked the dark bronze the best, so that's what I'm going to use on all of the ornaments, and that finishes this project. I absolutely love how these ornaments turned out, and I know I say that in every video, but seriously, I cannot believe that these were glass ornaments and now they look like stone. Just by the way that you add your paint, pouncing it with a sponge instead of brushing it, or adding a little bit of baking soda, and then using the wax to emphasize the imperfections. I mean, this is my style to a T. I love this distressed look, and I just want to distress all the things all the time. So I hope I was able to pass on some inspiration and ideas to you on how to either use your die cuts on your ornaments or just how to paint your ornaments in a different way. I will have a full list of supplies that I used over on my blog. There will be a link to my blog down in the description box. I will also leave a playlist to other handmade ornaments that I have made, and I will have that here on screen. That is all that I have for this video. I want to thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to subscribe before you leave, and I will be back shortly with another video, so I'll see you then. Take care, friends.